Hola. We live.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning. How is everybody doing? Welcome to this week's Access Denial with myself, John Little, and Miss Sonia Thomas, Sonia the Mom on Twitter for those who follow. We are here with another week coming fresh off of fall break, getting back into the year as we get close to wrapping up the first semester. But we got a jam-packed agenda to talk about today. As you guys have probably seen, we'll be discussing all things in public education in Metro Nashville. But the most important topic we'll be discussing is pleading just to read. Pleading to read. And so we'll be checking in. But Sonya, how you doing this week?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. Just kind of just looking at some of the stuff people be saying about education, flaws. So that's what I was just looking at. And yeah, I'm doing good, man. I'm just laughing. You got to laugh to keep from crying. Woo!
A lot of times you do. A lot of times you do.
But they kids be straight. That's what's so funny. Hey, Miss Moore. She said, "Hey, Propel
A
family."
good friend of mine came and, hey, Ms. Moore, she told me I needed to say, public schools, and I was like, you got to rephrase and think about it. Why are we saving the building? Why not the kids? Like, who told you to say save public schools, and what does that mean to you? And they had to take a step back and say, you're right. Like saving public schools, what does that mean? It may be different for a lot of people, but for
Yeah.
me, I'm saying save the kids.
hmm And
So
you are so
it is
right.
going
And
to
when
be.
I hear that, I always say, "Well, what part are you saving?" Because a whole bunch of
I
it
mean,
ain't
it's
working.
it's not a bad question to ask.
Yeah, and they can never tell you what part they're saving.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And this week is gotten cold, and so as we think about saving, the temperature has dropped. For the first time this season, I had to cut the heat on. I put on a couple of layers of clothes to tough it out, and I was like, I'm gonna go and cut this heat on. And that first of the season heat smell came. I was like, here we go, here we go.
My house smelled like some hot dogs was frying. I said, "Frying hot dogs. Put the heat on." They go Miss
Yeah, for
Fitzgerald.
some reason we couldn't wait any longer.
They go Miss
How you
Fitzgerald.
doing, Miss Fitzgerald?
Facebook
And
user.
thinkers last night who were on.
Oh, John, I think we got a delay. That's why we
I
keep
know
talking.
it on the thing. It says real watching. That's how I knew it.
Real. I think Real likes being a Facebook user.
I do too. I do too.
We know Real. What else we got going on? Miss Christmas. Hey,
But
Miss Christmas.
so Sonya,
She said, "Y'all couldn't see me on."
and can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, it's just got a little delay in it. So just when I think you stop talking, you start back talking.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sound like we fighting to talk.
It go right back.
It's all good though.
It is all good.
Yeah, but John, can I remind everybody of something real quick? So guys, we
Mm-hmm.
got a post, that's going up that we are sending out a message to our mayor, to our city council, to our school board members, our elected officials. I know you guys have been following the news, and I know a lot of you are Tennessee Titans fans, and we love the Titans. We love having a football team, but what we don't love is just only having 18% of Black third graders
Third grade,
reading grade level.
grade
We think
level.
their lives and their success it should be a priority in this city, and it should be right there before having a Titan stadium. And we just feel like people are focused on the wrong thing. They don't have their priorities straight. And so we're sending a message out to our elected officials that having 18% of third graders, Black third graders reading on grade level or meeting expectations is criminal. It is sad. It is the number that shows us that a school improvement pipeline not only has been created, but it will continue. And so we want you to go to our Facebook, to our Instagram, and to our Twitter, and you will see a post on there that is directly going to decision makers that we want you to like and we want you to share. So we want you to go and share from the Nashville page onto your pages also, so that your friends and your family will see this information, and so that we can make the public aware that the city continues to not have children as a priority. So go and do that now if you haven't done so. And if you haven't gotten 5 to 6 to 10 people to do so, make sure that you prioritize it today so that we can make sure that people understand why we need to make sure that our elected officials are listening to us.
And Sonya, already we've had a good amount of people who are sharing, retweeting, liking. I'm trying to find the original post, but this is why it's important to send a message, because every day decision makers are meeting up to decide how they want the city to run, how they want the city to look. And if they never hear from the people who actually make the city run, we find ourselves on the backside. And that's why this is our day to speak up. Tomorrow's our day, the rest of this year, because they need to understand that as we discuss over 2 billion, we first need to be discussing and making it a crisis that only 18%, 0.6% of our third graders can read on grade level.
And that is terrible. You know, that's quite embarrassing. I believe one of our Oakland cousins was on our Facebook page and he commented, he was like, oh my God, that is worse than Oakland, California.
And they're in the 40s and they thought that was bad until he came down south and said, oh, like, this ain't no good.
Yeah. So they're sticking it to us, and we've already we're too shy of our goal. We said 20 likes. I think we're almost there with retweets too. So just keep it going. Stay focused. Make sure that we're organizing and taking action using our social media. So we've got 18 likes and we got 2 retweets. So we got 8 shy away from the retweets and 2 likes. So good job, parents. Keep it going. Make sure you have not gone to our Facebook page. I think we're behind on our goal on Facebook. So make sure you go to the post on Facebook, go to the post on Twitter, go to the post on Instagram, and then you like it, you reshare it, and you get others to do the same. Shamika Ho, you done it yet? I'm calling you out. You done it yet, Shamika Ho?
Yep.
Morning.
and Shamika, we know you got the following of Nashville, and so we're gonna make sure you can just go to the page, go to the Twitter page, retweet it, go to the Facebook page, share it, because we know you're involved in all things sticking up for the people. And so we appreciate it.
Yeah, that's why I called her out, girl. We need them followers you got over there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I pick and choose my restaurants and what I do in education based on what she liking and retweeting and sharing.
Right, because you know she be on them Derek Gleave plates with them lamb chops.
or the vegan truck. I forgot what his name is, but Mike True got a vegan truck. I gotta go buy some vegan food.
Well, I'm telling you something, Shamika. Derek Glee's got some crack tea, fruit tea. Woo! That tea he made with them strawberry wings. Man, woo, what you saying? It's like type 1 diabetes. That's the first path to type 1 diabetes, but it's so darn good.
Mm, mm.
Facebook user says sharing. That's real.
Yep. And think about this, guys. Like, as you know, we get ready to end off 2022 with everything that's happening in Nashville, all the growth. You know, they're talking about the stadium, and the stadium is going to have a dome, and they're going to take away parking and put up housing. But then you look at the 18.6 number, and you have to ask, but who is the housing going to be for? So, although we're talking about education, like, this is going to affect everything downstream. When you got a poor education system, you don't have a good base of people of color who making money. When you don't got a good base of people of color making money, they don't have good places to live. When they don't have good places to live, they find themselves being exited out of the city. And so when we look at 18.6, that's a barometer, a thermometer, whatever you want to call it, to see how they feel about the youth in this city. We all know if you go to a church and you don't see a strong youth pastor or a strong children's church, you know where the church is heading. So when we look at the numbers and see 18.6, we know where it's headed.
Know exactly where it's headed. Let me tell you where they're gonna put the juvenile detention center. If you live off Brick Church Pike, it's gonna be right down your street. So you might be walking out your door, and there go the children that was failed by the system.
And we got to think, like, was that part of an overall plan? Because initially, when you heard about it, they wasn't talking about the Titan Stadium. They were just saying, you know, the building is old, like it's time to go. But not realizing that, again, decision makers are meeting up and saying, you know, what's our strategy? We can't do it all at once. So we're gonna start with juvenile. And the building is tore down. Like, I'm here now. Like, they need a new building, right? But why not just be transparent? If they're going to be transparent about the building, why can't we have a real deal conversation around how our kids are doing in reading? And if you look at the third graders, what's that new law that's coming up? July 1?
Oh, it's already here. It's already law as of July 1, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Third grade retention law. And so we're talking thousands of third graders who could potentially be retained. Now, I know many of you, as we've talked to you, it's like, but they're moving them on and they're not ready. Correct. However, if they would just do the right thing in the first place, meaning making sure that we don't have poor instruction, that we have educators who are equipped with the tools to teach the foundational skills of literacy, we wouldn't even need a law such as this. The scary part is retaining those children to go in those same classrooms with the same poor instruction and blaming the child and blaming the family. That's scary.
Mm.
That's scary. How do we know the difference between a struggling reader and poor instruction? How will you as a parent know the difference? That is scary. If you can't answer that, you should be afraid.
And that's going to be our biggest problem we have to tackle. You know, 3 years ago, we were canvassing out east. And I want to say it wasn't Casey, but it was Old Lane Garden. I forgot what they called the Old Lane Garden now, River Chase. And as you saw the families in River Chase, you know the school they were going to? They were going to Ida B. Wells. You know how that school was doing? It was terrible. You know where River Chase, Lane Garden, or whatever they want to call it, you know where it is now?
Toe down.
It's toe down.
It's toe down. That we walked over there in them yellow t-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
Our 50 cent PAF t-shirts. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And we those doors. And oh, John, you just bring back some memories. I remember meeting the mother, and we were telling her about the priority schools. And I remember what I had on. I had on my work clothes because I had to dress business casual, and I had on some boots, but I had this ugly yellow t-shirt over my clothes. And I stood there and I talked to this mother who had young children. And she began to share with me that she had a learning disability and that her children also had a learning disability. And she began to tell me her dream for herself was to be a nurse. And so when I shared with her that I have a learning disability, and when I shared with her that I had 20 years at that time of nursing under my belt, and when I shared with her that there shouldn't have been anything that kept her from being who she wanted to be, that we had a system failure that did not help her to meet her greatest potential and her children at risk, she broke down and she cried there. And I remember crying with her because it broke my heart. It broke my heart. She had her children attending the lowest performing schools. And the bad thing about that is it was a whole path. Now that I know, and what I didn't know then was elementary, middle, and high school, those children would never attend a high performing school in their entire school career. That is a shame. And I wish I could meet with that mom again. And I wish I knew where she was, and I wish that we could be there for her. Just not sure what happened to them. I remember them being very poor, but I also remember realizing that that didn't matter and it shouldn't matter how poor she was. Her children should be taught how to read, and she had the right to be taught how to read. And y'all, that's what we're fighting for. I was talking to someone today about the fact that it shouldn't matter whether or not a community is underserved. It shouldn't matter. And in that conversation, the person said, the problem isn't that they're underserved. The problem is they're ignored. And that resonated. I was like, you are so right. It's not that they're underserved. Like, that shouldn't be what we're talking about. We should be talking about the fact that people are being ignored. And so we launched this communications this morning so that no one would ignore us. No one will ignore us. So remember to go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, like, share, retweet. Let me know in the comments if you've already done so. Let me know in the comments if you've already done so. If you have liked, if you have shared, if you have retweeted. Maureen said it's done. Thank you, Maureen, my good friend Maureen. We gotta catch up. I was looking at our picture the other day, and we've got to catch up. Anybody else? Like and share. Done. Miss Fitzgerald, done. Miss Chrisman, done. Look at y'all. We've got to make sure that we amplify the voices of parents and our families from our most struggling communities. And it's up to us to build that movement of parents. And so I want to salute you guys today for understanding that it's not about just your child, but we're talking about 18.6% of children reading on grade level or meeting grade level standards. And that is me, the invisible you I shared. Thank you, the invisible user. The invisible user sharing the invisible crisis. Thank you so much for doing that. So what's going on? What else is going on? I when I was gone over the last couple of weeks, I hear y'all was talking about some bullying going on. And I'm glad that you guys talked about that, because there is a lot of that going on. And I want to make sure that people understand the consequence of that. The consequence of a child being bullied is low performance in school and depression and anxiety and low attendance. And the biggest consequence is the physical damage that can happen to our children. So I think it's a question that you have to make sure you keep asking your children and identifying whether or not they are being bullied. I had a daughter who was at MLK who was being bullied, severely bullied. And if it wasn't for me on the way to school having those deep conversations, I wouldn't have known, because she thought that because I had called and I had been up there, and they didn't do anything, that nobody could help her. And it wasn't until I got an understanding of the law and the rights and the process that I was able to fight on behalf of her. And so we've got to make sure that parents understand their rights. We got to understand the process. We got to understand the decision makers. At Nashville Propel, we make sure that our parents understand decision makers. We don't want to go to the cafeteria lady for the child being bullied. We want to make sure that we're going to the correct people who can actually do something. There's plenty of Tennessee state law that's very good. And the district attorneys here don't play that. And you shouldn't play that either. And if your child is not doing well in school, you've got to ask yourself the question, is my child being bullied and picked at school? Also, we got to learn the difference in what it means to be bullied and what harassment is, cyberbullying, and all those things. And so I'm glad that you guys had that deep conversation about bullying, because it is a key factor in low performance. Like, it is one of those things that affects our children, and they don't want to go to school. They don't want to go to school when they're being bullied. If they start sleeping in and I don't want to go and don't nobody like me, like, you should be very, very inquisitive about that. Let me see. I'm looking at these comments. I think I lost John. So what do we have going on at Propel coming up soon? Y'all know we're doing our social media campaign. Torvis is meeting with parents. He's organized this Friday night at 6 to do some relationship building. So maybe Torvis has reached out to you guys about that event. If you know of any Halloween type events, trick or trunks, any of those things, please reach out to us. Let us know what's going on in the city. So we want to make sure that we show up there. I think this past Saturday, Torvis just joined me. The team went to anti-bullying rally. And Torvis, you want to talk about that just a little bit?
Yes, they had, I guess, the second annual anti-bullying rally, which this is anti-bullying month
Mhm.
in MPS. So they had a rally at, I think, Haley Park. Just fun, food, games, but just bringing awareness to the bullying situation. Like we said before, so many things going on with bullying, school safety. We see the guns, the drugs, and it's in priority schools mostly. So I guess that now that we know there's something going on with the school as far as bullying, and a lot of parents have been going through it by themselves. It's a lot of situations where it's never really been reported. Like Ms. Sonia was talking before, it's different things that have to take place in order to report bullying. Because, like we always say, they're not going to monitor themselves. It's always a lot of paperwork. You should investigate it. Parents should know something about it. But what we find out is the kids get bullied, they'll let an adult know, nothing happens. And then eventually they fight back. They get suspended or expelled. Now, if you come in the house every day, kick his dog, one day the dog gonna bite you. So, and it's the same way with these kids. I just can't imagine how they going to school now and they not can't read, can't write. They gotta worry about safety. They gotta worry about guns. I mean, it's just so much stuff going in the school system besides learning. And as y'all was talking about earlier, look how quick they came in to get this title stage. What happened with the money for the education for affordable housing and things like that? But they was quick to go with this stadium.
Mhm.
Billionaires came with billionaires. So what
Mhm.
about our kids' education? 18% of kids are reading right. I mean, come on, it's crazy.
But I mean, but it's obviously intentional, right? This is data that has looked like this and has been stagnant for decades. Okay, for decades. It's the receipt, right? It's the receipt that our children are not being put on a path for success. You'll see it when either when they in the graduation rate when they don't graduate, then that's too late, or you see it if they possibly make that 19, which is equivalent to a C, and they get in college and then they drop out, and it's too late because then they've already been introduced into the world, and then life is really hard on them. And so I don't think it's too much to ask, Torvis, for us, like, why are we waiting so late? One of the things we found out, Torvis, about even the data that we're just quoting, like the 18.6% on track, that is third grade data. The state does not track any data for kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. So then when you get to third grade, they say you can't read, then they're gonna hold you back.
I mean, it's crazy because, um, and then we had a meeting with the board one time. They said, "Well, kids come in behind." Well, if you know that, why come you're not doing any early childhood development? Why come you're not? You got all this money. Why come you're not doing something early if you already know this is a problem? Look, if I got a hole in my swimming pool, when I get that first hole, I'm gonna worry about it. I'm not gonna worry about the whole ripping and going all the way down to the bottom. So why you wait to third grade to decide they can read and write when you know they're behind in kindergarten? By the time third grade roll around, they mean they missed for kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and then third grade. And you wonder why kids are in middle school on second grade reading level. Reading Bernstein Bear books and stuff like that. You see it's a problem, you know it's a problem, but no, you're using the data to, we just gonna gather when you get in third grade, and we're going to, this is exactly when they decide how many prisons they're gonna be in. So it's like it's a system. There's just nothing wrong with the system. The system is working the way it was designed.
Yeah.
It's doing exactly the way it is designed. I
Mhm.
was talking, I think John this morning, and I was like, think about it. We don't know anything about investing or anything like that, financial literacy, because our kids can't read and write, so they'll get to that point. But then they can't even write in cursive now. You can't even sign a check. So I guess that's why they're setting everything up for direct deposit, because they can't sign a signature on nothing.
Mhm.
Now they're talking about taking clocks out of school, putting digital. I mean, it's pitiful. You get more and more money, but you teach them less and less and less, and you're getting the numbers went down. Like we said, we got 19 priority schools now. It's not getting better; it's getting worse. So when are you gonna decide to do something about this?
Torvis, let me tell you something. You can't make excuses and educate children. When I think about my youngest son went to preschool, went to good preschools. And when he got to public school, they said he was behind, and I fought for him, but they didn't do anything. My daughter, who's working on her master's now, she attended private school. She could read and write in cursive by the time that she was 5. I put her, and I'm gonna say it, in Jones Padilla, who only has 3 out of 290 students on grade level. I remember the day, and my baby, if she didn't have her bonnet on, she'd tell you the story. I put her in Jones Padilla, and they called me and they told me, look, she finna come over here. She finna vouch for, don't wave at her. Go on. I'm like,
Oh.
she can vouch. That's so crazy. She can vouch. She remembers sitting in the classroom and remember them calling me and what they said my daughter was behind. And I'm like, how is she behind when she can read and she can write in cursive? They said, well, she won't talk. And so I set Sarah down, Torvis, with a little sweet little chocolate cell, with a little puss. And I said, Sarah, why won't you talk to them people at that school? And she was in first grade, I think. She said, because they trying to teach us stuff I already know. She said, I already know that stuff. She said, they keep on trying to teach me the stuff that I already know. This was a baby. But they said the child had a learning disability. I'll give you another example. Jordan, my oldest son, could read and write in cursive when he got to kindergarten. Y'all listening to me? Because what happened was they were taught how to write in cursive before they were taught how to manuscript. They had to write cursive before they could do manuscript. And there's something behind that too, but that's not the objective. He got to Kings Lane, from private school to Kings Lane, and he was writing in cursive. And his teacher, I'm gonna tell y'all her name, because I'll never forget this. Miss Fletcher told my son, we don't do that over here. We don't write in cursive. Yes, sir. It deflated him so bad. I remember what he had on. He had a red collar polo and some little blue shorts and a brown belt. Now he might have been country, but I remember that. I said it to say low expectations. Low expectations for children. If a child tells you they're teaching us stuff that we already should know in the first grade, in the second grade says, but my teacher says I couldn't write in cursive, that's low expectation. That's the real problem.
Yep, you're right. Because when I coached football in junior pro, I was 7, 8 year old, and I played college ball, and it was all terminology. You want your child to go play sports, they have to know the play. I own a player, and I know him personally. I talk to him all the time. Larry Kennebrew, played pro ball, went to TSU. He can read and write. This something run about left and right. But you have to know the plays. So these kids learn college plays. They were 7, 8 years old. And it was all terminology. Regardless of the play, it was still, if I say 23, it's a two back and three hole. It's just universal. So you can't tell me these kids can't learn. It's just a style that you do it in. And if you have low expectations, it's like, well, they're not going to learn it anyway. So you just going to we just do anything. We just going to sit in the classroom and just make sure they don't do nothing to each other. But they have no expectations for these kids. And these kids are smart. Like we always say with the individual learning plan, you got to figure out how did you learn something. You can't make everybody learn the same way. On your job, they don't make everybody learn the same way.
Read using research-based foundational literacy skills.
Right.
But you just said something I want to highlight. A lot of people are like, those children, she can talk, he can play a video game. Let me tell you guys something. What should be happening is the words that children can say, they should be able to read them. Language comprehension, reading comprehension. They need the background knowledge about what they're reading. They need phonics and phonomic word, letter to sound recognition. And they cannot have the bullshit literacy skills of memorization. And most children are learning how to read looking at pictures. You can't learn how to read like that. You cannot teach a child how to read. And we've got to get rid of the practices that we know, parents, they know it doesn't work for children. It doesn't work. Balanced literacy, sight word list does not work for children.
I don't know where they came up with this sight word list anyway, because the sight words is you identify these words in a sentence. This sentence might have 10 words in it, and you're gonna worry about the word it, see. So a lot of times, like you said, memorization, they look at the word, look at the sentence, and they start reading it, and then they guess what the rest of it's gonna say or what they think they're supposed to say. And that goes back to what you said about teaching with a picture. I can look at a picture, look at a picture, and we can have two different comprehensions of this picture. I remember my mom we used to read stuff. She used to answer the story about everything. What the story say? What's the subject? What's the matter? What's the problem? You have to know all this stuff when you go about reading. But I see now here all the time. It's like, well, it's okay. No, it's not okay.
Mm-mm.
To write something down and it be spelled wrong. They be like, oh, this okay. No, it's okay. I don't want to hear about it's okay or being on the percentile. Percentile of what?
Mhm.
A students, B students. I don't want
Usually,
to hear
when they
about
use
this.
those
Okay.
percentiles, they're doing a comparison of the kids that are in the building. So if you go to school with everybody is performing low, right? This is the thing that's really important. Let's just say you go to a school and everybody in that school is not doing well because not because the kids are dumb or the kids, though the parents don't care. It's because there's poor instruction going on in that building and low expectations. And when you have kids in a building where everybody is struggling, then what happens is the data that you're getting for in that school is in comparison to the kids in that building. Then there's data that is in comparison for kids across the state and across the country. And so, parents, you have to be careful with report cards. You got to understand. And Torvis just asked a good question: in comparison to who? And you got to look at that school. If that school is not doing well, then you got to know who your child is being compared to. And that's scary, Torvis. That's a really good question, a really good thought process.
Yeah, it is scary because we went to school every once in a while. If everybody did something wrong or got bad grade, they graded on the curve or they just do they grade out because they didn't, nobody learn it. So that if anybody in the classroom learn it, then it means like you said, poor instruction. Anybody get it. But if you're doing math or reading, everything is a building block for the next thing. Like we were saying before, first grade is a building block for second grade, third grade. So if you don't get first and second grade, what you gonna do in third grade? It's like when
Mhm.
pandemic happened. My child was in 2.5. When school started back, she in 4. Well, hold on, they missed out. What happened to the rest of the second grade, third grade? Now you're in the fourth grade, and
It's
then you
hard.
was already behind.
It's hard to go back.
So yeah, it's hard to do that. And then they'll catch up or something like that. So that sounds like to me now they're grading the whole school is on the curve. They grading everybody on the curve. You know what I'm saying?
You gotta be
Oh, we can't
careful.
do it. We're gonna change the grade. So it's crazy. It's
It's
crazy.
scary. It's scary because we know what's going on in these buildings. And to see, for me, it's heartbreaking to see, like, it's not that I don't want people to celebrate because I believe in celebrations. Like, I'm gonna celebrate my birthday. But I also have to look at, once I celebrate my birthday, like, what does the future look like? Like, what do I want to be true after my birthday? What's the next milestone? What is the goal that I need to hit? And we're not hearing that from the district. And we need to know that. There was some growth. There was some growth from the pandemic, which was not school. Like, those kids did not have school. Plain and simple. Black kids did, for sure. But while people in the country went on and had their pods and those types of things, when you had schools like a Hume Fogg that still got good instruction virtually, right? Or some charter schools really did good with virtual instruction, but kids who were not getting it in the classroom prior to the pandemic had to go to another method of learning. Like, they did not have a school year. So of course you were supposed to see growth, right? When they go back into the building, and we celebrate that. But I also think about, Torvis, I think about, you really can't lose what you never had.
You're right about that.
How you lose something you never had?
You're
And that
right.
is resonating with me over the, because people still want to talk about learning loss, and that's fine. And learning loss is very real. And we talked about it. But I also had to think about some of these kids never had it. They never had
No,
it.
if you know how to ride a bicycle, you ride any bicycle for the rest of your life. Now, you physically might not be able to do it at the age 70 or 80, but you still know how to ride a bicycle. So I
Yeah.
was taught how to ride a bicycle. I didn't lose to see how to ride a bicycle. But like you said, it's something they never had. You can't lose something you never had. I never had it. I
I
can't
never,
lose $10,000 if I never had it.
yeah. And I can't just start reading if I never had those foundational literacy skills. Right. You know what? I'm gonna bully if the high expectations haven't been set for me not to bully, and I don't understand what bullying really is, and I think I'm just picking on somebody. Like expectations is everything. It is everything.
And Rachel saying that a lot of these kids, um, when you're in the school, when we went to school, if you can read and write, people picked at you. We call it Joan in or whatever, whatever. And now I look at it, it's flipped around, and some of the kids can't read and write. They pick on you if you can read and write. I'm like, how did this happen? Because you can read and write, they picking on you. So a lot of kids get in trouble or become class clowns or become bullies because they scared the teacher gonna call on them and they don't want to get up and sit in front of class and show that they can't read, they can't write. So they're gonna be tough. Don't bother me because I'm tough. Because they can't read and write. They're not just doing it for just be doing it. It's a reason why they're doing this. It's a reason why the kids are bringing guns to school. It's a reason because they're being bullied. They try to take care of themselves, but nobody else is taking care of them. It's always a reason. When you see stuff that happen, you gotta look behind it and see what the reason is behind it.
Absolutely.
But we never do that. Like you said, you have all this data, you have all this information. Look, what you doing with it? If you gather it, what you doing with it? Because we see that things are getting worse daily.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to somebody that works in juvenile justice this morning, actually. What they do is they go and they teach social emotional learning and self-awareness to kids from Davidson County. Some of these kids come from Memphis, Murray County, and across the state of Tennessee, and they're in jail, in juvenile jail. And what that person told me today was, Sonia, it breaks my heart when I look at their handwriting and I can't recognize what their name is because they can't spell their names. And that did something to me this morning. See, that didn't start. That didn't start there. That happened in elementary school. That didn't happen in middle and high school. That happened in the beginning. And it's heartbreaking to see, to hear, because I've seen it for myself. Remember during the pandemic, we had that student that I took up to a low performing high school, Torbis, and I figured out he couldn't read because he couldn't fill out a form. Remember that I took him in my car myself. So we're
Yeah.
not talking about one or two. That's how you know it's a system failure, right? I've seen people try to parent shame and say things like Ben Ball said that the school system cannot fix what Black parents won't address. He said that the school system can fix what Black parents won't address. And I felt like that was very racist, cold-hearted, and amongst some other things. Because when you talk
Oh,
about you're talking about me too, right?
right, right.
And I think about the stories that we hear, Torvis, every day. And I think about the struggles and the obstacles that are put in the way of Black people. And when I was talking to the man today about those kids that could not write, I went back to that. I went because I thought, you know what I thought about? His parents probably can't write either. They probably can't read either. See, ain't very many people that can read and write proficiently sitting in prison cells. They may learn it when they get there, because even the federal government has realized that dyslexia is a problem. So they're addressing dyslexia in the prison system, in the federal level. So that took me there, Torvis. And you said it. We're not asking why. Like, we're not going back and looking at the underlying problem. All we're just saying is somebody mama didn't do something right. When we know that mamas and daddies, they're asking help for help. They're crying out for help, and they're being ignored.
I was just gonna say something about the jail. Looking at what the words say, that podcast you had, you notice a lot of things, it's because they can't read and write, but to go to jail, go to federal prison. They too smart. But these kids go to the jail system because they can't read and write, and they remind us of little boy that went to jail to this day. He graduated in May. When he was in jail in June. They said he robbed Captain D's. Well, he was actually on Facebook Live. So he went down to the jail. They said he done it, and he signed a piece of paper said that he's he didn't do the crime, but he actually signed a piece of paper saying he did the crime. It's, we could go check on him when I was working with mental health. It's like they say he's not playing dominoes or cards or anything like that. So we'll check on him. We got there. It was like, what come you not socializing with him? We found out he couldn't read and write. Well, you just graduated. Everybody was treating you come to stage last month, but now you're here in jail because you signed something because you can't read and write. And I said then, this is a real problem. The problem happens day, every day. So you make money off them in the school system and you're not teaching them. Then you turn around and make money off them when in jail. So when this child gonna make money off themselves, everybody's made money off of them. You go to high school and not being taught, then you say you go to jail for 10 years for something crazy. You 30 years old. You have a felony, you have a record, you can't read, you can't write. What you supposed to do?
They're institutionalized. They're institutionalized.
You get back in trouble with a back. Yep.
They're institutionalized. I worked, and most of you don't know this, as a nurse, I worked in the prison system for a little while. I worked in Tennessee Prison for Women, and I also worked at Riverbend Maximum Security. And I worked with death row inmates. And I worked with maximum security inmates all the time. They're institutionalized. And when they come out, they commit those crimes, and they come out, like a lot of these guys, come out, don't even know how to use a cell phone. They have to learn how to use a cell phone. And, the only thing they can see, and now in the prison system, they glamorizing it and giving them iPads and tablets and stuff. And it is to keep them busy. So the same thing that the people in the world and the system complains about, kids being on video and social media and playing games and stuff like that. What you guys don't know is they give them that bullshit in prison to sit there to preoccupy their time. So that's why I don't listen when people get at parents about, well, you ought to get them off of the video game, or they watch too many video games. They on social media. Guess what I tell them? They doing that shit in prison too. So don't give me your parenting skills. Don't try to shame the parents when y'all doing the same thing. You just want to ignore them instead of addressing the issues that are really at hand, making sure they know how to read, making sure that their parents have somewhere to live that's affordable, that's nice, that's crime-free, that's not like Babe Ruth, where they gotta duck and dodge bullets, where they can eat good food and not eat food that's got fruit flies, where they can go to Publix, have a Publix in their neighborhood instead of an HG Hills. Those are the things that our mayor, our elected officials should be working on. Why they didn't put the juvenile detention center in West Nashville? Put it over there. That's why we fight the way we fight. That's why I cuss out Ben Vaught when he said that teachers in school can't fix what parents want to address. That's why he got cussed out on Twitter and the phone.
Yeah.
Because the system is set up to make sure that it works for some and not for others. That's why I'm loud as hell. That's why I won't take no mess from people. That's why we got to build a movement of parents who will fight on behalf of other parents. Because everything works against what we're trying to do. You go to a parent-teacher meeting, it's 6 of them, it's one of you. They got their policies. You don't know the hell what they talking about. They using acronyms. They telling you it's just because it's a boy. They tell you to read to your child for 30 minutes.
Yep. And they gang up on you. I was on a parent manifestation meeting one time with East, and my name wasn't on the screen, but I got in early, and I heard the whole conversation. That's somebody, well, we're gonna say this, and we're gonna do this, we're gonna put it on the parent, we're gonna tell her this, and that. But we're gonna say to her, that ain't there, and all this stuff. And then one of the teachers like, oh, somebody else is on here. So they cut it out. So when I came back on, all of them had changed their names. They went from like they first name to their last name or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I heard your conversation. So you had already said that you're gonna tell this lie, turn this lie. So like I said, when she just said, yeah, it's one of you, 5, 6, 7 of them, they're not gonna tell them themselves. They can't govern themselves. And even with this Tiger Stadium, think about this Tiger Stadium. How many of us is going to the Tiger Stadium? How many can afford to even go there? But that's the number one priority now, the each city. Getting tourists in, getting hotel tax fees. We can't afford a hotel down there anyway. But we want our neighborhoods to be where we can walk through our neighborhoods, where we could function in our neighborhoods, so we can have quality food and things like that. We're not getting it. And they don't care about it. So that's why you have to speak up and speak out. You have to band together. You got to, like you say, create a movement. You can't do it by yourself. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us.
All of us. Let me tell y'all something. Somebody got mad at me because I said I am not a PTO mom. And I respect PTO moms. My best friend was a PTO mom at Amqui. She was a PTO president. And her kid left that school unable to read. It was my son's best friend. They were all in the same classes, and both of them left that school and could not read a lick. And she was a PTO president. So you'll never see me be the PTO president. I am a movement builder. And I'm building a movement of parents that's led by parents to protect parents. Because what I know is, the system will protect the system. And it is always protected and regulated and operated for itself. So I want that to be clear to the world, what we're doing here at Nashville Propel. We work for parents and we work for students. We don't work for the system. We don't work for the system. We're here to hold the system accountable to do what it says it's going to do, or else kids must have an exit ramp out of it.
You're right. You're exactly right. So why, if you're not going to do what you say you're going to do, you're not going to be accountable. You're sending to the school anyway. You know, why is my child coming to this building every day, and at the end of the year, they are worse than what they are when they started? How they going to start in kindergarten and get to the 8th grade, and they still They still on the first grade. Somebody out there knew something was going on, but it just pass them along. Pass them along. Send them to the next person. Send them to the next person. I don't want to deal with them. I don't want to deal with them. It's like a hotel. It's like a hotel. You go to a hotel, you gonna stay there for the weekend or whatever. Then you go, you school's the same way. This is pacifying for 2 years. After that, they're gonna be on some action problems. And this was happening. So it's passing the y'all along. So you can't trust your report card and all that. I mean, why can't do this? You can't do this and do that. And now you got an A in the classroom. Come on, man. I don't trust none of that.
They say the math ain't mathing.
The math ain't mapping. I'm gonna tell y'all this right here because I see a lot of parents who have students with IEPs. Let me tell y'all something. And you know what? I'm probably gonna get these mamas riled up.
Mm-hmm.
You know this. You gotta know this. I want you to know something that you probably didn't know, or you're probably just realizing. Those accommodations that your child is getting should help your child do this. They should be excelling and accelerating.
Yep.
If that's not, you're not seeing that in progress monitoring with any life goal, with any business plan, you need to make sure they change it to get them there.
Torvis, what happened when you go to the doctor, give you some medicine, and you go home and it still ain't done anything? They up the what?
They up the dosage. They do a titration to see what's the right dosage.
Right.
So
That is what should be. Come on, Torvis, go and talk your shit. It should be doing
Yeah.
what?
they should be titrated to see what's the right dosage. And with technology nowadays, they even have DNA tests that can tell how your body breaks them down and metabolize it, and you can see if something's working or not working for you. So they can cut through some of the stuff to the titration by doing it. So if you got this baby and something in school and you're not doing anything with it, how kids in 504s get in trouble? How kids, how you get in trouble? Ain't somebody supposed to be walking to you with class? How you not getting your work done or getting this read? Ain't somebody supposed to be reading to you? Ain't somebody supposed to be with you? So I'm like, where your parent at? What they doing? They not doing what they supposed to do. They're not even there. So I'm like, something is really, really wrong here. But they're not gonna tell them themselves. They don't expect parents to know that. And I tell the parent, I say, well, answer what the parent is. If your child has mental recognition problems, why are they giving them a piece of paper to mental recognition? That's the reason why they got an IEP. They not even follow IEP. Some of the parents don't even know it's on the IEP. They never seen the IEP.
You should
They
see it
have IEP
before you
meetings.
sign it. They need to see it before they sign it, before it's implemented. If they're emailing it to you, like you are supposed to go over that before it's put into play. John, I sent you a picture the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Most of you guys know I pulled my son out the system.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he goes to a school. He goes to a private school now. And so let me tell y'all what happened. His chemistry grade got low. And I got this email, scared the hell out of me already. My nerves is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And what it says is, we are intervening. We are intervening. We are intervening quickly. By 12 noon, Charles Thornton Jr. must go meet with Mr. Montgomery. In that meeting, we are going to put together a plan. He has to sign a contract. He has to go to tutoring every day, signed by his teachers. And you have to make sure that you are aware of it. Like, we're making sure you're aware of that.
Right.
Scared the out of me. I didn't know what was going on. I sent it to John.
Yep.
I called Mr. Montgomery. He said, Miss Thomas, he said, we are intervening on your son's behalf because we don't want him to score no lower. We want to make sure that he excels. We want to make sure that he has the support, and we're going to do our part to make sure. He said, so this is not to penalize him. He said, we're going to make sure that every student, when they hit 70, we intervene so they don't go no lower. CJ came home in 24 hours. He said, I got my chemistry grade up and my theology grade. Because then what he did was He wasn't failing theology. He said, okay, I'm getting close. I'm going to intervene on my own behalf.
Right.
That's called a personalized learning plan.
If they ain't never seen it before.
Yep.
And what you text me back, John?
What's that?
What did you text me back? You remember what you said?
We can do it. The system can do it.
He said proof that it can be done.
Yeah. You know, the first thing people like to do, but we got to realize that they love an elitist type system. And so they're like, oh, sure, it's the private schools. Like, they got it. Like, you know, that's elite. But at the end of the day, kids are kids. And so if one deserves it, all deserves it. If they can do it, why shouldn't we do it? Because it ain't about the money. So let's don't even get started with that.
Oh, his tuition is just a little bit more than what the per pupil expense is.
Right.
Just a little bit. So it ain't got nothing to do with the money. It's got to do with the high expectations, the determination of the school to be able to say, no, we're going to make sure every student is known and every student succeeds. Oh, that's Metro School. My bad.
You're right. You're right. The Boys and Girls Club have individual learning plans. Well, the Boys and Girls Club can do it. I know you can do it. Yeah.
Right. And Andrew Jackson, Boys and Girls Club, right out of North Nashville on off Jefferson Street, doing it too with no additional money.
They got PLT time. PLT time needs some more structure, and that is the structure that it needs. There's no reason for a high school. You know what a high schooler told me last year at White's Creek? She said, PLT is our playtime. Yeah. Right out of the babe's mouth. I didn't make it up. She told me that. That's our playtime. That's our free time. No, PLT time should be, all right, all hands on deck. Parents, let's partner. That's what that school reached out to me and said. All right, Miss Thomas, we're going to partner with you and Charles Jr. And we're going to make sure that he is equipped. And we're going to do our part. And we're going to set up these tutorials for him. And we're going to make sure he's there. He needs to make sure he has a responsibility. And we got a contract. They call it a contract. We got a contract that everybody going to sign. That's partnership. Everybody going to do their part. That's
accountability.
PLT time needs some contracts. It needs some partnership. It needs some structure. It needs some high expectations. That's what it needs.
And so what we want to do on this last bit, guys, we want to make another focus. Help us spread the message out. You know, people need to see why they're having a conversation on whether we should get a $2 billion stadium or not. They don't need to dominate the media. They don't need to dominate the headlines. The headlines need to be only 18% of Black kids in the third grade can read on grade level, and it's criminal. And people need to know, and we need to spread the message as much as we can. Help us reach this goal to get it to the decision makers.
Boom. So I'm proud to announce we have met our Twitter goal. Let's go Facebook. Let's go Instagram. Let's keep it up on Twitter. Good work, parents. Good work, team.
Amen. And Torbis, thank you for jumping on too. In my light, there was a whole story behind that, but man, like, keep up the good work. That bullying conversation was great, and now we're having a conversation about real things that are affecting the group of kids that are going to be subjected to the retention law this year, or this school year.
Boom.
All right, guys. Well, we will see you guys back here next week, next Wednesday for Access Denied right here at 11 o'clock. Thank you guys for joining in. Thank you, Victoria, Kendall, Miss Fitzgerald. We got Rhea, Thomas, Nicole, Miss Maureen, Keller, Latrice. Thank you guys, Shamika, Yvonne. Like, these are the conversations we need, and we will keep this conversation going next week. Thank you, guys.